Bob in San Luis Obispo, California. Hey, Bob, you want to talk about the Israeli elections?
Yes, Tom. The one analogy I'd like to point out is how you have the situation in Israel has really been exacerbated by the extreme right-wing tilt of the leadership in the government, right, and the apartheid situation for the Palestinians in the area. And when you see a foreign person to Israel coming in, investing in their media and supporting the far right-wing candidate, is kind of like how Fox News was so supportive of President Bush back in 2004.
Right.
And I really think that as ugly as the situation looks to most of the world in Israel, I think that's how the world viewed America back in 2004 also.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And you know, what's going on here is Shelley Adelson, this American billionaire, is trying to launder money out of Macau, or is trying to get out of Macau. He's got these casinos off the coast of China in Chinese-controlled territory. He's trying to take that Chinese money in the United States and not pay income taxes on it. And the Democrats back 4 or 5 years ago tightened up the rules on offshoring money and would thus increase the taxes on the Koch brothers and Shelley Adelson. And Adelson is hell-bent for leather to go after this. And I think, frankly, part of that is supporting Netanyahu and Israel. It's kind of a backdoor way of controlling the U.S. government through Bibi Netanyahu, because Netanyahu can control the Republican Party in the United States.
Yes, he can. And I'm just wondering if Israel has taken its far right swing as far as it's going to go, or maybe they're almost at the apex, and will start to swing back to the left. And
here's why I think not, Bob. I think not, because Netanyahu has done the same thing Bush did. I referenced this in my rant from the last half hour, but I should have gone into more detail. You take a situation which is not great and you make it a whole lot worse, right? Like what we did to the lives of ordinary people in Afghanistan and Iraq, and what Netanyahu has done to the lives of Gazans and people on the West Bank and Israel. You make it a whole lot worse with a lot of institutional stuff, with big stuff that the average person can't go against, like, you know, us going into Iraq and firing every single government employee who was a Ba'ath Party member, which was virtually every government employee, and, you know, totally turning a society upside down on its head. You know, Bibi Netanyahu has done something very similar to that to Palestinian society in Gaza and the West Bank. And so he has created a situation where there is so much blowback against him. I think probably the best parallel to this, or the best parallels, are South Africa and the United States 150 years ago. That you've got, you know, even if the country comes out of that apartheid, and even if it says, okay, we're going to make it right for the people that we've been oppressing all these years, it still takes a long time for that to catch up. We're still catching up in the United States. African Americans are still very much in catch-up mode. We're only really a generation out from the long, loud echoes of slavery, and not even a generation. I mean, it's still here. And so go ahead.
I was going to say, so even though a majority, well, possibly a majority of Israeli citizens may view the Palestinians and the Gazans as, you know, more humane and not all terrorists, there's still that institutionalized racism and apartheid that's inside the Israeli. Bob,
when I said that it's time to call Israel an apartheid state, it's not that different from South Africa under P.W. Botha. You'll recall Israel was the one country that was actually thinking of selling nuclear weapons to South Africa back when it was an apartheid state. Ronald Reagan supported South Africa as an apartheid state, and was very opposed to Nelson Mandela and all this stuff. But here's, apropos of that, listen to these. This is from the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, the ACRI. They are the Israeli kind of local variation of the ACLU. There's no association between the two, but they do the same kind of stuff as the American Civil Liberties Union. And in 2007, and I'm getting this from a piece in Alternet by Zed Jalani, titled "The Results Are In. Israel is an Authoritarian State. We can no longer deny it." He's also, I think he also posted this over at thinkprogress.org. He says, in 2007, they polled Israelis on racial attitudes. They found that 50% of Israeli Jews say they would never live in the same house as an Arab or allow their children to befriend Arabs. In 2010, they did a follow-up, and they found that 50% is now 56% of Israeli high schools favor barring Arabs from the parliament, from the Knesset. And among religious Israelis, that number rose to 82%. And again, when they had the war this last summer in Gaza, I mean, that's the kind of thing that Netanyahu will do, because it causes people to fall in line, his people to fall in line again, in favor of him and against the Gazans. Polls from reputable outlets found that somewhere between 86% and 95% of Israelis supported the bombing of Gaza, whereas only 3 to 4% of Israelis believed the Israeli military used excessive force. That, as Ed Jelani points out, those are not the kind of polling numbers you get out of a functional democracy. Those are the kind of polling numbers you get out of an authoritarian regime. And I would say that is, under Netanyahu, that is what Israel has become, and we should start treating them as if they are. Make sense, Bob?
And do you think if the Palestinians went forth with more of a Gandhian attitude of, look, we're being oppressed, and we're not going to fight this now. We're just going to let the world see what Israel's doing to us.
I have been
there's an institutionalized. I was going to say I understand there's a mindset, perhaps, in the minds of the male-dominated society in the Middle East, where they feel they need to stand up and fight.
Yep.
But if they were to take the cue from Gandhi and Martin Luther King and react in a more nonviolent approach, perhaps they can get the world more on their side.
I agree. And for 11 years on this program and in writings before that, I have been saying I think both the Israelis and the Palestinians have blown this. And I think Yasser Arafat blew it really big time. And because he was, he had these two constituencies. He had the people who actually wanted peace no matter what it took, even if it meant being peaceful. And then he had the people who, last week, last month, last year had a member of their family killed by Israel or by Israel's policies, and they're just not ready or willing to hear talk about, let's go stand in the streets and chant Kumbaya and let the police fire rubber bullets at us. And that's why I don't think that either side is going to get this consensus for peace that they really need. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Netanyahu has been just amping up the racism. And particularly, the morning of the election, oh my God, the Arabs are coming out to vote against me. You got me. Stop the Arabs. Right. We've got a racist authoritarian who is running one of our most consequential allies in the world. And we have been defending that ally against all kinds of stuff. And frankly, the Palestinians keep coming to the UN saying, we would like to be a state. We would like to be able to, for example, charge Israel with crimes against humanity in the International Criminal Court. Or we would like to just be able to do normal stuff that states do. And who vetoes every effort to do that? The United States. Now, not require Congress. That's something the president can do on his own. He can simply advise his ambassador to the United Nations, stop vetoing those. They aren't even anti-Israel resolutions. They're pro-Palestinian resolutions. Stop stuff that supports the Palestinians, and let's let Israel just fight this battle on their own rather than with us. And I think that would have tremendous power and consequence. And as Tom Friedman points out, it's a whole new world with regard to this. Bob, thank you for the call. There's also, in saying to the Palestinians, why don't you just stand there and let them shoot at you, there's also a certain amount of Martin Luther King could say that to his people. I can't.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
A member of the oppressor class, as it were, should not say to the oppressed class, just take it. It'll get you what you want. It's not believed.